All right, let's dive in. We're going to talk about a tool that's really shaking things up for anyone who works with the cloud. It's called Pulumi. And the big idea here? It's all about bringing the power of real programming languages straight to your cloud infrastructure. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, let me ask you something. What if your cloud spoke your language? And I don't mean some weird custom configuration language. I mean the language you actually write your apps in. You know, Python, TypeScript, Go. That simple question, that's the whole idea we're going to unpack today.
So to really get why this is such a big deal, we have to look at this problem that's been around for a while in cloud development. I like to call it the infrastructure code divide. Okay, so picture this. On one side, you've got your application code. This is where the magic happens, right? You're using expressive languages like Python or TypeScript. You've got loops, functions, classes, all the good stuff. But then, on the other side, you have your infrastructure code. This has traditionally been written in these declarative kind of static languages like YAML or HCL, which you might know from Terraform. Look, they work, they get the job done, but let's be honest, they just don't have that same creative flexibility that we're so used to as developers.
And that divide is exactly where Pulumi comes into the picture. It's designed to be the bridge, connecting those two separate worlds with a totally fresh take on infrastructure as code.
So what is Pulumi, really? Well, at its core, it's an open-source infrastructure as code platform. It lets you do all the usual stuff, building, deploying, and managing your cloud setup. But here's the kicker. You do it all using the programming languages you're already an expert in. And that is the absolute game changer. It means no more mental gymnastics, no more switching back and forth between your app code and some totally different specialized language.
This whole thing is built on a pretty simple but powerful philosophy. First, use real languages. Why? So you can unlock all that good stuff like loops, if statements, and classes for your infrastructure. Second, be universal. It's built to be multi-cloud from the ground up, so you can handle AWS, Azure, GCP, Kubernetes, whatever you've got, all from one place. And third, unify the workflow. The goal is to have one seamless process for both your application and the infrastructure it depends on.
Okay, so that's the what and the why. But what about the how? How does this actually work day to day? Let's walk through the core workflow, and you'll see it's going to feel incredibly familiar if you've ever written any kind of code.
It really boils down to a super simple three-step dance. Step 1, you write code, just like you always do, but this time it's describing your infrastructure. Step 2, you run a preview. Think of this as a dress rehearsal, a totally safe dry run that shows you exactly what's going to be created, updated, or deleted. Then, step 3, once you like what you see, you deploy. You hit the go button, and Pulumi makes it all happen in your cloud account. Let's talk about that first command, Pulumi Preview. This thing is your best friend. Seriously, it's your safety net. It looks at your code, compares it to what's actually running in the cloud, and gives you a crystal clear plan. It'll say, hey, I'm going to create this, update that, and delete this. The best part? No surprises.
All right, so you've seen the preview, you're happy with it. Now what? You run Pulumi up. This is the command that actually makes things happen. It takes that plan and executes it, talking to all the cloud provider APIs to make your infrastructure a perfect mirror of what you described in your code. This is the moment your infrastructure comes to life. And what about when you're done? Well, cleanup is just as easy. You've got Pulumi Destroy. It's literally a one-command teardown. It finds every single resource managed by your project and poof, it's gone. This is amazing for temporary dev environments or just making sure you're not paying for stuff you aren't using.
Okay, we've covered the basics. But now we get to the really cool part. This is where the magic happens. Let's see what it actually looks like when you unleash the full power of a real programming language on your infrastructure. Just look at this. This slide says it all, really. Let's take a super simple task. Create 3 S3 buckets. On the one hand, with a traditional DSL, you're either copying and pasting the same block of code 3 times, which, or you're wrestling with some special, sometimes clunky for each syntax. Now look at the Pulumi side. Using Python, it's just a for loop. A simple, beautiful for loop that any Python developer on the planet would understand in a split second. It's so clean, so elegant. This right here is the whole pitch in a nutshell.
And trust me, this goes so much deeper than just loops. Think about it. You can build reusable components. Imagine creating a function. Let's call it create web server. And inside that function, you define the server, the security group, the load balancer, the whole shebang. Then, whenever you need a new web server, you just call that one function. Boom, done. You can use simple if-else statements to say, if this is production, give me a giant database. Otherwise, a small one is fine. You can pull in libraries from pip or npm to do, well, anything. And maybe the biggest win of all, you can write actual unit tests for your infrastructure. You can catch bugs in your infrastructure code before it ever even sees the cloud.
Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. Whenever you talk about infrastructure as code, one name always comes up: Terraform. So it's the obvious question, right? How does Pulumi actually compare to the big player in the space? Let's break it down.
This comparison chart really lays it all out. The big one, the main event, is the language. Pulumi lets you use the languages you already know. Terraform has HCL, its own specific language, and CloudFormation is all about YAML or JSON. Now, for multi-cloud support, both Pulumi and Terraform are fantastic. CloudFormation, well, that's pretty much an AWS-only party. But here's where it gets really interesting: reusability and expressiveness. Because Pulumi lets you use real functions and classes, the level of flexibility you get is just off the charts.
So, after seeing all that, you're probably asking, okay, I get it, but when should I actually choose Pulumi? When does it make the most sense?
Well, Pulumi really hits its stride in a few specific situations. For instance, if your team is mostly software developers who live and breathe Python, Go, or TypeScript, the onboarding is going to be way smoother. If you absolutely need to manage infrastructure across different clouds like AWS, Azure, and GCP, it's a top-tier choice. And if you're excited by the idea of writing real tests for your infrastructure, or even better, embedding infrastructure creation right inside your applications using an API, then yeah, Pulumi was basically built for you.
All right, let's just zoom out for a second and think about the big picture here. Because what we're talking about isn't just another tool to add to your toolbox. It's really a shift in mindset. It's about building a truly unified relationship with the cloud.
And that whole idea really comes down to a single number: 1. Think about it. One language for your application and your infrastructure. One single code base where everything lives. One unified workflow that finally tears down that wall that has always existed between writing the code and building the place for that code to run. Which really brings us to this perfect little summary statement. If you remember one thing, it should be this: Pulumi is where code meets the cloud. That's it. It's about taking all the amazing practices and tools we've perfected in software engineering over the years and finally applying them to the massive, complex challenge of cloud infrastructure.
So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. When you look at your own projects, your own team, your own workflows, is it time to finally unify your code in your cloud? Pulumi makes a really compelling argument that maybe, just maybe, the answer is yes.